Hi, everybody. My name is John DiPietro,
And I'm Bob Zagami.
and we want to welcome you to the Camper Report show. Bob, tell us about what we've got coming up tonight.
We got some industry news, but I've got an interview with Curt Hemmeler from the RV Technical Institute.
And I'm talking to an RV professional about all the things you need to do to put your RV to rest for the winter months. Those stories and much, much more coming up tonight on the Camper Report. Hey everybody, my name's John DiPietro.
And I'm Bob Zagami, and welcome to the Camper Report show.
Bob, there is so much going on this week in the world of RVing, and you know what? I'm excited to share it because it's all positive news. I mean, all the reports are out that next year is supposed to be just as big as this year for the RV industry. Talk about that.
Yeah, they're projecting record-breaking sales next year, 507,000 units. But there is a little bit of a hang-up out there. Talking to a lot of the dealers, they're getting pretty low on inventory. The replacement inventory is a little bit slow coming in because of some supplier issues. So if you see an RV on a lot that you really like, you probably should pull out the checkbook and
grab it now.
The inventory is going to be low for a little while.
Well, you know, the traditional thinking was that if you were in a northern climate, you know what? Look to see what's on the lot, and probably it would still be there in January or February, and then, you know, you didn't put any money down, but, you know, grab it then. But that doesn't seem to be the case this year.
No, you're absolutely right. They're selling them as soon as they get them in. In fact, I talked to a lot of dealers today, and the stuff that the RVs that are coming in, the motorhomes and the trailers, they're already allocated. People are buying them sight unseen. They're putting the deposits down and say, all right, you got 10 of this particular motorhome coming in. I want one. You know, the only thing I'll pick out the color when it gets here. So they're already selling the replacement inventory.
Well, the other thing that I'm noticing now is people are getting into RVing without necessarily buying an RV. So the big headlines this week is that RV Share, one of the companies that's been around for, one of the veterans that have been around for 7 years, they just got another $100 million in investor capital to expand. And, you know, it said that they've already rented over 2 million RV nights and over $100,000, over 100,000 different RVs. The share business seems to be just going crazy.
It is, and it is going crazy. It's very active, but it's nowhere near the full potential yet. That's the exciting thing about the peer-to-peer. People are recognizing it. In fact, you had posted on RV Tips this week and talk about the posting, the question that you asked and the responses that you got. That I look at it as good prospects, but they were not exactly jumping in with both feet.
No, over 600 replies in a day, the majority of them saying, no, I wouldn't. And most of the people had said that the reason they wouldn't rent their own RV is due to insurance purposes, and it would invalidate the current insurance they have on. But now a lot of these new programs are providing an insurance that is good when a renter has your unit.
Yeah, that really isn't a valid excuse anymore. All of these companies recognized when they went into that business of renting out somebody else's unit, they recognized that they would have to cover the consumer in the case of an accident or theft or something happening. They certainly couldn't put that back on the consumer to pay out of pocket. So that has been taken care of, and that issue is not anything that should prevent somebody from doing it. But again, it's part of the whole learning process, and as more and more people get out there, and when they see that, you know, these companies can raise $100 million to grow and accelerate their programs and offer more services, then they have all the potential of becoming, you know, as big or bigger than an Airbnb when you think about the millions of RVs that are on the road. And that bodes well for the RV industry, because two things are going to happen. One is people will buy an RV when they didn't think they could afford it because they could subsidize their payments by renting it out in a peer-to-peer network, or be, those people who say, no, I will never rent it out. I won't, I want to sleep in my own bed. I won't rent this. But then they look and they investigate the peer-to-peer world, and they buy a second RV. Maybe not be as nice as their first RV, but they buy a second RV and they put that into these programs. So you can list it on RVZ, which we had Mike McNaughton on. You did the interview with Mike last week. Mm-hmm. They can list it there. They can list it at RV Share. They can list it at Outdoorsy. So it's getting a lot more publicity, and you really don't see many, when people rent, you don't see many negative stories at all. You don't see on the news that somebody drove the rented Class C off the side of the road. These people, they're going to rent them, they're going to protect them. And because they're renting from another person, they meet them up front, they see that it's a valuable asset for them, and the person renting it makes sure that they know how to use it. So they take more time to make sure they know how to use it.
And as you mentioned, we know someone, or I know someone, my wife and I know someone who already had an RV, and it was kind of their own that they've customized, but they went out and bought another one, a brand new RV to put into the rental fleet. And they thought, well, actually March, April, and May, all of the bookings that they had went out the window. But once the green light came on, they were booked solid. So sometimes the situation was they'd get it back on Sunday night or Saturday night in order to go out, have to clean it up in a couple hours and get it back out for the next renter to take it. So like you say, there's kind of like a little cottage industry now. But with the new national companies, it kind of takes a lot of that worry away. Speaking of national companies, let's go to an international topic that is very interesting. I read somewhere today, I think it was in Woodall's Campground News, that RV parks in Texas, which I think this park has 600 spots, 500 of them for the last few years are occupied by Canadians. Now, as we know, the border between the United States and Canada is closed to wheel travel, although you can fly, but it's closed. So anybody who has their RV, either the northern or southern side of the border, can't move it either way. But they're still saying that they expect a lot of those Canadians to come down. And as you mentioned, maybe because they do anything to get out of that weather up there, maybe they're going to come down to the U.S. and use one of these rental services to, maybe cut a long-term deal to stay for January, February, and March.
Sure. And if they don't do that, they could always rent a cabin. They'll still be in their favorite campground, but maybe they'll rent a cabin this year, and if they have to leave the motorhome or the trailer back in Canada.
Yep. But more importantly than that, Bob, I think it's fair to say that there's an 80-degree temperature difference between Quebec and Texas.
You think that would have anything to do with it, John?
I think that might have something to do with it, because somebody said, look, if I've got to be secluded up in Canada, I'd rather, and as well as in Texas, I'd rather be secluded in better weather. And speaking of not being secluded, there are more and more stories each day. I saw 3 of them today from New England families that have young kids, mother, father, husband, wife, whatever, with young kids, preschool or early school years, that have just said, look, I can work from home. And just today, Boston announced that, at least for the foreseeable future, 100% online. These people are buying RVs and they're hitting the road, and they're heading west, they're heading south, but they're doing things that a lot of people wait till retirement to do. They're doing it, and the results are just phenomenal, that the kids get to see the Grand Canyon in person instead of just in a textbook.
Yeah, and that's going to happen more as we get into the fall. If they expect another spike, or especially as it relates to schools, because every city and town has taken the precautions to have a in-person model, a hybrid model, totally online. But as we saw with Boston today, there was a situation yesterday. They had too many, and they announced that starting today, we're going to go all online. That's going to happen a lot more when they do it, which makes it, like you say, accessible to hop in the RV and head out and do the classroom training in the great outdoors.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we'll see a lot more of that Yep.
Yeah. The final topic today on this section of our show is the business side of it, where Lazy Days, we talked about Lazy Days last week, going public, but what's the story on that?
Well, 2 days later, they pulled the IPO or the public offering, and sometimes that's a technical issue, sometimes it's administrative, but they just didn't feel that it was the right time to do it now, so that public offering is off the table. We have to wait to see. And typically when that happens, they wait. Maybe they're waiting for the market to be a little bit more acceptable to them in terms of what they think they're going to get on a price per share. But you'll see it again. They've already made the declaration. They just took it off the table for now. But you'll see it come back, and we'll be reporting on that once again, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, that just about wraps up the industry news portion of the show. When we come back, you've got a special guest. Tell us who that is.
I got Curt Hemmeler, who's the executive director of the RV Technical Institute, and people tend to think that that's an industry-only initiative, and it is funded by the industry for dealers to send technicians. But again, because of COVID, they had to change the whole training module, and they rewrote a lot of the courses, and they're online now. They're online at a self-paced level, and they opened it up to consumers. So somebody who is mechanically inclined, who likes to work on things, can take the very same course that our dealer technicians are taking. And the level 1 course is what we call a PDI, for pre-delivery inspection. It goes into the basics of propane, electricity, air conditioners, and the like. And he's going to be our guest right after the break.
And that's very interesting, because now that it's open to consumers, consumers can get the same training that the professionals get. And so many consumers are do-it-yourselfers, but they're kind of like going in blindfolded, because they're not necessarily following industry standards and the proper way to do things. So we're going to find out about that. And I'm going to be talking to some RV service professionals. They're going to be talking about all of the things that you need to be doing if you're going to be putting your RV to rest for the winter months. There's much more than winterization to do. So with that being said, we're going to be back with more of the Camper Report show right after these very important messages. Stay with us, everybody.
All right, welcome back, everybody. And my guest right now is Curt Hemmeler from the RV Technical Institute, the executive director. Curt, always fun to find you out there and working hard, and you're sitting right in the middle of the institute, right?
Yeah, we sure are. We're just missing some important pieces. Those empty seats should be filled, Bob.
Well, well, that's part of what we want to talk about. I think a lot of people, consumers, when they think or hear about the RV Technical Institute, they think it's there for our dealer training or supplier training. And you've made a major change in the programs that directly impacts the consumer, which I'm excited about, because I think with the shortage of technicians, the more that people can do on their own rigs is critical, but also for the independent and mobile. Let's talk about the person that owns an RV or thinks about buying an RV, and why RVTI is so critical to them now.
Sure. No, without a doubt, the consumer is a critical piece of this, Bob. And you are right that a good portion of what we do does serve the industry itself. The techs that the consumer is taking their units into to be worked on, it's important that they get trained appropriately and correctly, so that they get the best service available. So that's definitely one position of what RVTI is about. But we're geared around getting the initial idea of RVTI was also standardized curriculum. We haven't had that before. It's now standardized from an 89 task list of what needs to be done or a technician needs to be able to do out there. And we have this in place so that we build a curriculum around that so that the techs of today that we train both in the industry or for folks that want to come outside. And you mentioned it already, we're not training just dealer technicians. A technician can be a mobile technician. A technician can be an independent service center. Our goal is to train as many folks as we can as well and prepare them to be able to perform maintenance satisfactorily so that the consumer has the best experience and is not delayed in their lifestyle by a repair issue.
Let's talk about that a little. I think sometimes people think that they don't have the skill sets to do it, but in essence, under the new program, you're recruiting at the high school level. You're getting veterans coming out of the service. You're getting retired people that may want to be a mobile tech or whatever. But if somebody's mechanically inclined, talk about level 1 and the PDI and what's incorporated in that. Because I think that a lot of people who are mechanically inclined would have no problem with our level 1 training.
Oh, definitely, Bob. If you think about a lot of the technicians that are out there today, they learned with dad and grandpa, right? They grew up wrenching. That used to be the majority. Now that's the minority. So we had to create a program that took somebody who may have never been subjected to that at any point in their life and start them at a point where they could be both confident as well as competent in learning. So the program starts with level 1, which is the PDI tech. And it starts at the very beginning. We start with telling you what is a Class A, Class B, and Class C RV, because a lot of these folks haven't even been exposed to that. So the entire curriculum is created to take somebody that knows nothing, and nothing not in a disrespectful way, but have not been subjected to any type of trade type work before. So as you mentioned, we're taking this into the high schools. High schools are adopting it as part of the old industrial arts days. The program's unique in that it focuses on every part of a house. So you think about that, the trades that are really suffering right now for plumbers, electricians, and so forth, that's in our curriculum. Yeah. That's critical. And so we take it from the very basic of level 1, which is a 40-hour class. By the end of that class, you will definitely understand electrical, how it works, flow, how water flows and resistance and so forth. That's critical to, moving up to the next level, which is where you get into diagnostics and troubleshooting of those 7 core areas. And then you have a third level, which is more specific training. Now you're dealing with the vendors, the suppliers that provide all the pieces and parts that go into an RV, but specifically maybe their brand. The Lipperts, the Trumas, those types of things. And then, of course, once you've satisfied all those 3 levels and with some time in the seat and lots of wrenching, you will qualify for the Master Tech level. And those are the 4 current levels. I envision those continuing to grow and expand as the industry demands and needs, and we will be there to respond to it.
So if there's a consumer out there, an RV owner, and they're watching this and they say, I can do that kind of stuff. I work on my oil heater. I work on my car. How do they apply, and what is the cost of the level 1 training for the consumer?
Sure. Well, we're excited because we just launched an online piece, which is just one way of learning. And so you have a couple what we refer to as delivery options of the education. You can actually come to Elkhart if you choose, which is not the most convenient, but always a great face-to-face interaction. You can actually, if you have some experience, you can go on, and this is all through rvti.org. You can go to the website and see this. You can actually just go and challenge the test if you're maybe experienced technician already, or you've been in a field similar to the program. You can order a set of books from there if you're a self-studier and you like the smell of ink and the turning of pages and studying on your own. Or as I mentioned, our newest, just launching October 12th, is our self-paced online program. You can also go there to sign up for that program. And this is totally anywhere, anyplace, anytime. You take it at your own pace. It has built-in labs. You don't need an instructor of any type. And at the completion of that, you have the ability to sit and become certified. And all the pricing is included. So this includes the curriculum, it includes the textbooks, and it includes the actual test at the completion of your coursework. So all of the programs are $19.95 for level one. If you are in the industry, so if you are a mobile tech or already working in the industry, please let us know. There is special pricing for that group, but if you're not in the industry, it's not that much more. But $19.95 is the price for level one, and then $29.95 for level two. And level two right now is not in the self-paced program as of yet. All the other ways of learning, coming to the school, challenging tests, getting textbooks, those are all available currently.
I think our interest here is really trying to get consumers excited about getting some of this training, because it can be frustrating, and the reason I wanted to have you on is we know, everybody knows, we're getting so many first-time buyers with the increase of RV sales, and they haven't had RVs, they haven't been in campgrounds, so not having an RV can be intimidating. Like you say, it's the old house on wheels, and there is kitchens and plumbing and heaters and air conditioning and the like. So we want to get more consumers excited about taking the online course and saving themselves a lot of aggravation. If they're in the campground, they'll know what they should be doing.
Well, to that point, Bob, you're exactly right. It doesn't take much. That $19.95 investment, it will be really the equivalent of only about 1 or 2 repairs at the current rate if you have to take your unit in. So if you can prevent that from happening, you'll pay yourself back real quickly. I've talked to a lot of consumers at some of the shows, and one of the funny things I always hear is one, it's usually a husband and wife situation, or a husband and significant other, and one is retired and one is not. And they're like, well, how do we make this work? Well, have one of them become certified, and as you're going around camping, maybe you can get into some repairs for folks that aren't quite there. And so there's a lot of opportunity if you use it for yourself, or if you actually make a business with it. We will prepare you appropriately.
That's fantastic. We will put the address down below, Curt, and so people will know where to go to sign up for the courses. And I appreciate you taking the time out today to visit with us, and we will catch up to you down the road.
Okay. Thank you, Bob, and have fun, everybody.
Thank you.
So welcome back to this segment of the Camper Report Show. And folks, we're at the time of the year right now when weather becomes an issue. Now, if you're in Florida or Texas or California, probably not as much as if you're in New England or the Northeast. But what it really boils down to is there are circumstances that you need to do to protect your RV from the winter. And I'm here with Bucky. We're at Timbuktu RV Center. We're in Massachusetts. And Bucky, there are so many new RV owners this season that are entering their first down season. A lot of them are going to attempt to winterize themselves. Talk about some of the devices that they're going to need, because this is not a normal year.
Antifreeze, first of all.
Antifreeze. Okay.
To make it an easier job, too.
This is the antifreeze right here.
That's it.
Okay. RV antifreeze.
Yes, and not the alcohol type.
Okay. If you mix up the antifreezes, you've got major problems, right, Bucky?
Yes.
Okay.
And alcohol can cause other problems within the freshwater system.
So. Okay. So you can get these at your place or at big box stores or whatever, but it's got to be RV antifreeze.
Yes, definitely.
And for a standard unit, how many of these gallons would they need?
3.
3, okay. So what do they go for? $5 or $6?
$4.95.
$4.95. Okay, so that's not too bad. And then there are other variety of different plugs and hoses and gizmos and gadgets that you're going to need. What else would they be needing?
The water heater bypass kits are the most important. It saves them 6 gallons of antifreeze without having to pump all that through the water heater. And the conversion kit that attaches to the pump itself makes it a lot easier to suck the antifreeze right out of the bottles and pump it right through the system.
Okay. And there are people that can say, well, you know what, I'm just going to go onto YouTube and I'm going to find a video and teach me how to do this, which a lot of people, if they might be mechanically inclined to do. But people like me, okay, luckily I've got my appointment all set for next Tuesday. Right, Kenny? Right? Next Tuesday I'll be here.
If you attempt to do this on your own and don't necessarily get it 100% right, you could be up for a rude awakening in April, right?
Yes, you could.
So what would some of those potential shortfalls be that people forget to do? And what would be the result in April when you go look at your unit again?
Pumping the antifreeze through the system is fairly simple. You have to remember you're trying to put antifreeze where there is water. So you have to remember to do all the faucets, flush the toilet, outside shower, anything else. Even if some of the bigger units have washer dryers in them, they have to run them through a cycle to pump the antifreeze through the pump and the washer, as well as the ice maker.
Ice makers, right?
The other
yep.
units.
Yeah, because a lot of these units now have these big residential refrigerators that are not necessarily the first thing that you'd think of having.
They have to think of it
to do that.
It's just trying to remember where there is water, you want antifreeze.
Okay, so wherever there's water, you want antifreeze.
Yeah.
Okay. Time period that it should take for a novice to learn this if they're going to attempt this. And I say attempt it because attempt is probably the best word here.
Less than an hour from start to finish.
Okay. Okay. And
for most average units anyway.
So you should try to get it done before the first frost or the first freeze is going to be happening there.
You have to remember to drain all your holding tanks as well, because any liquid that's down behind the valves is a smaller volume of water that can freeze quicker and destroy the pipes.
Okay. So we've got, again, a lot of first-time RV owners this year that are going to be facing this situation. Words of advice to them?
Most new units come through with a bypass kit on the water heater. Just remember, once you bypass it, you have to drain that water heater from outside. That takes care of that. Drain any fresh water out of your holding tank, and both gray and black water holding tanks have to be drained. Mm-hmm. And don't forget to put a little antifreeze down the traps or down the sink. Because there are traps in there too that hold water.
That hold water, so put it down into the drain of the shower, the drain of the sink.
Yep, sink drains.
And there's so many units now that have multiple sinks. I mean, even the outside kitchens. Right, right, exactly. And the outside kitchens are another
remember all of those.
Issue to do.
Every floor plan is a little different, and so you have to just kind of know your unit and make sure you remember where there is water. You want to make sure there's antifreeze.
Yeah. Now, how about a lot of places they use air to blow out the lines as well? Is that necessary, or is that just an extra?
Well, the antifreeze is going to push the water out anyway.
Okay.
A lot of people blow them out first, and it's all right. Some people get away with just blowing out the units and using no antifreeze. They're lucky if they don't have any problems. We have to use antifreeze because we guarantee our winterizing job, so we can't afford to guess whether there's any water left in there anywhere.
Okay, so that's the thing. That ounce of prevention, or I should say, a gallon or 3 gallons of prevention is certainly worth a pound of cure. So we want to thank you so much. And can we talk to your guy Kenny and find out a little bit more about what's going on with what other things that people should be doing with that time of the year? Okay. We're going to talk to Kenny in just a second. So it's early in the morning, but it's already like Grand Central Station here at Timbuktu, and we're talking with Kenny. And Kenny is a service writer, and anybody who comes in to bring their unit this time of year goes through Kenny one way or another. Everything goes through Kenny. But Kenny, give us some of the points that people should consider in addition to the winterizing process. What should they be doing to prepare their RV for a 3 or 4 month time of non-usage?
Well, one of the biggest thing I think is the rodent infestation. For some reason, mice seem to love RVs. Preventing any kind of penetration of mice, squirrels, chipmunks, so on and so forth. Preparing your entire unit to cover it, to keep it from debris on the roof.
Yeah, we talked about the roof before. There's issues that, if you're parked under a tree, that acorns fall onto.
The acorns, the leaves, the pine needles, they tend to want to get kind of caught up inside your slide rooms, your awnings, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
But it's also the food and personal items that you want to pay attention to on the inside.
Right. So there might be food in areas that you're not necessarily always thinking of.
Spices, dried goods, your
Salt,
dog treats, your cat
sugars,
treats.
those little packets of condiments, mustard, ketchup, relish.
Exactly.
Get that out, right?
Refrigerators, yeah.
Okay.
Because, just closing up your refrigerator for the season, you trap moisture in there, you're susceptible to mold issues.
Right. So when you're storing your fridge, even though it's turned off and it's cleaned out, and people should wipe it down, not wait till the spring.
Kind of jar the doors open just a bit,
right?
Just to get air circulation into.
So even if you take the inside liner of a toilet paper wrapper and put that in the door and then tape it, that's what I do.
Baking soda, Arm & Hammer baking soda or something like that. Yeah, sure.
All that stuff. Now people say, "Oh, I can leave beer and wine in," right?
Absolutely not. Any kind of liquid will freeze, just as your RV could freeze. You don't want to leave any sodas, any beers, any wines behind. Take all your alcohol and store it inside.
Bring it into the house.
Then there's just smaller items. Again, your personal items, your clothing. You don't want to give any reason for anything to be ruined. And it's also wise to kind of pop your head inside your camper in the wintertime just to give it a general once-over. Check it out. Make sure that you don't have any leaks or you don't have any infestations. You don't want to be surprised come April.
Right, because November to April, or even December to April, again, depending upon when you put it away.
We still got warm weather this time of year.
Right.
So, but yet, things tend to leak. They spring up surprises all by themselves.
Rodents can do phenomenal damage, right? I'm sure that you've seen.
Absolutely, we've seen it all. We've seen it all, and it's not just the mice. It's the chipmunks. It's the squirrels.
They invite their family members in.
They migrate, exactly.
So a rodent thing here. I see this is not the only one that people can have, but it's basically a smell thing, right? That doesn't kill them.
It has all the preventatives that the little critters don't like. It's the peppermint oil, the cedar oil. It's an all-natural product.
So this is not going to kill somebody. It's
not going to kill anybody.
Okay.
It also throws off a great aroma for us to enjoy as a smell. It gives it kind of a Christmassy smell, we like to say.
Because there are the people that will want to put rat poison in, and then what happens, you've got a dead animal in there.
Then they go and they die off somewhere inside the coach, in the wall, in a storage compartment, in a storage bin that you might have.
And that aroma is not...
These don't draw them out. They're a preventative product. So if you don't have them, you put them in. Usually you put them in all the accessible points. Anywhere an LP line might come through the floor to go to your stove or your refrigerator. Electrical cords might come in from storage compartments. You just want to prevent them from entering the unit.
Okay, so quickly, a couple of the stories that first-timers have come in with prior to the wintertime, but, now we're in October and, the pandemic started in March and RVs started flying off the lots in May and June. Have you ever had any funny stories that have come in with first-timers asking you a question that a veteran person would laugh at?
I think we've pretty much heard it all. It's something. It's humorous to us when you hear it because it's almost a routine thing. But if you're not knowledgeable about RVs, you tend to want to just plug something in the wall. The camper has everything that your home amenities might have: an electrical outlet, a gas stove, a refrigerator, lights. But they all work in different proprietaries. You have to routinely check to make sure you have enough LP. Electrical outlets and air conditioners only work on 110 voltage. You have to make sure your batteries have plenty of water if they are a wet battery. But you also have to check bulbs. You have to check simple things. it's a little more preventative maintenance more so than anything else. But it's routine things that you have to kind of.
Wasn't there one person that came in that forgot that they had to empty holding tanks? I think you told me that. Somebody...
Because you flush a toilet and you think it just goes down into the sewer and it's gone. Well, you have to remember that it goes into a tank that you have the duties of getting rid of your shower water, your sink water, and so on and so forth. But it's a
little bit of everything.
It's a little bit of everything.
So hopefully people watching these videos will comply with some of the requests that you've made, and they don't call you in panic in the middle of winter, or worse than that, in the springtime.
Hopefully so.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So there you go, folks. You've heard it from the experts. Listen to what they've said, and you can have a carefree winter, and better than that, be able to open up in the springtime without any issues.
Thank you for joining us on the show this week.
And if you like this show, hit that subscribe button down below. Down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, there's a little button that says subscribe. And then when that is done, there's a little bell that pops up. Hit the bell so that every time we have a new show, you'll be the first to see it.
And tell all your friends about it.